We turn now to social impact investment, and I'd like to invite Chris West, the Director of the Shell Foundation, to address us. Chris has been with the Foundation since 2000 and has been its Director since 2008. Before that, he was Senior Environmental Advisor at DFID, and before that again, he ran his own social enterprise in the environmental services area, so he's very well equipped to talk to us about this. Chris.
Thanks, Richard. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll try and cover three areas in this brief conversation. First of all, to try and illustrate what we do and how we've deliberately tried to be disruptive as a source of private capital. Secondly, our evolution has really coincided with the growth of impact investment as an asset class. So to share some of the thoughts on this. And then thirdly, to share some of our thoughts on what the experiences are with impact investing and its growth, and what I think some of the future trends might be, and how those complement or otherwise with ODA. So just to frame us first, is there a...
sorry.
Thank you. Which one, Chris? That's right. That one. So, as Homi very kindly said, I mean, since our inception in the year 2000, so we're only 12 years old, we've always had a focus on achieving scale of impact. And we've sought to do this in ways that are business-based. I mean, the whole idea of can we tackle big development challenges in a way that draws on business skills and thinking and leverages off our links to our corporate. So, in many ways, what we were trying to do deliberately from the outset to be disruptive was a very different model from traditional corporate foundations. Anyone who knows me knows that I cannot stand corporate foundations historically. And the whole issue is how do we move away from... I'm trying to... Was that Hobby? This is not about risk mitigation. It's not about building relationships with certain stakeholder groups. This is about how do we use private capital to generate impact in ways that are lasting and scalable and sustainable. In other words, there is an exit from subsidy dependence. So that was one very deliberate effort. Secondly was the deliberate effort to think, I think businesses have a huge role to play in development, and how can we as a foundation broker that bridge to a large corporate and try and bring on board some of those skills and knowledge and market connections into an area that historically the private sector have been less active in. And thirdly, I think disruptive in that I ban the word project in the foundation. We have partnerships, as Homi alluded to. We have long-term partnerships, and therefore this is a very different way of engaging around sharing business skills, sharing more than money, having long-term, patient, flexible relationships with a few partners that we select. And just to give you some sort of outline, I mean, when we started in this area in 2000, I mean, words like impact investment and social enterprise didn't really exist in common terminology. I mean, we found through our own experience that the partners who performed best in achieving scale were crudely social enterprises, ones that blended a financial return objective with a social or environmental return objective. And a lot of that was due to the mindset, the commerciality behind some of these organisations and their entrepreneurial leaders, but again because of their demand-based, market-based, customer-based approach. So we didn't necessarily start off with a fixation on social enterprise, but we found that we're the best performing partners. Just by way of some examples, I think the notice from ODI refers to it. We've got a clean cook stoves partner that's now the global leader in the manufacture of and distribution of clean cook stoves worldwide. We have the largest African-based financier of start-up and growing small businesses in Africa. We have been a pivotal player in a number of access to energy-related businesses, Husk Power in India, which is now probably a leading provider of off-grid electricity to rural areas in poor states. And in fact, we have a partnership with WI on Embark, and how do we get sustainable mobility solutions at scale in all the growing urban areas that Andrew so eloquently talked about. So we have some knowledge in here, but as I say, this overlapped with an evolution of impact investment. So one of the questions I was asked, what is social impact investment? I'm sure some of you know. I'll give you a quick overview from my perception. It is this concept to blend financial and social or environmental return. It has embedded in it the concept that you make financial return. So it is very different from charity in that respect. One could say it's not new. I mean, development finance institutions have been doing this for many years. But But I think we are talking about a very different approach here, and of course it's different to socially responsible investment, which is more about trying to minimise impact. So it is an active way of achieving blended value. There are many impact investment funds now. JP Morgan recently have done a market assessment, and I think this sector could mobilise up to $1 trillion in the next decade. So the prospect is considerable. Related to impact investment is something that I would equally like to highlight, which is venture philanthropy, the idea that you use grants and other instruments to help develop social enterprises so that they can then access impact investment funds. So in addition to a class of investors now looking for financial returns on the back of measurable social or environmental impact, you're getting an evolution away from traditional philanthropy into venture philanthropy, trying to create these social enterprises. And with Mike Green in the audience, I'd be wrong if I didn't say there are other terms like philanthrocapitalism emerging into the sector of this blended value proposition of achieving change at scale. I'd simply show a highlight of the landscape here. It's complex. On the left, you've got pure charity, in other words, money given purely for development return, typically solely grants, where there is no expectation of financial return. Across right to the other right-hand side, where you've got commercial investment, which is prime purpose is achieve commercial returns from investments. What you're seeing now is a growth in that middle area where investors are seeking to invest in social enterprises where there is a blend of social return or environmental return and financial return. And the $1 trillion that JP Morgan refer to is really around supporting some of these social purpose organisations, social enterprises. And there's a lot going on at the moment across sectors, across regions, by diverse actors. As I say, this is just a figure from the European Venture Philanthropy Association from their members. Again, you can see the cross-sector activity in these areas. So I would say that there is a new cadre of giving and a cadre of actors involved in the development space than there was 10 years ago. I would equally say that this is going to be here to stay and to grow in every way and will succeed. However, I think there are some issues that I think everyone involved in this sector realises are still evolving lessons. If we think about how long microfinance took to evolve as a recognised asset class, here we are with impact investment with less than a decade of track record. So it's not surprising that in the evolution of an asset class there are some learnings coming out. I mean, and these are our experiences, others might have different views, but I still think at the moment there is a lack of evidence that these investments do achieve the duality of social and financial return. There's the expectation there, but has it been proven at scale? There are huge problems with regard to the availability of social enterprises to receive this money. There is a lack of deal flow, and in many ways that requires a lot of smart, patient venture philanthropy or grant support to develop these businesses to a point where they can receive debt or equity finance and allow them to grow to scale as intended. So there is a need to merge different actors in this space if we're really to realise the potential. I think, obviously I listened to the conversations about development assistance before, but I mean, again, in this space, are we really getting the measurable social impact at scale that we expect to see? I mean, that needs to be measured and monitored. The investors clearly have an incentive to do so because that's part of the basis for them making these types of investments. So the other thing I would say from our own experience of having created social enterprises is, this is hard. This is really, really hard. Trying to create businesses that are servicing markets where there has usually been no existence for the product or service before, so you're having to almost create a market, create a business to then do it in difficult environments. It's hardly surprising. It takes a long time. It takes patient support. It takes blended support. Even when you do get highly successful pioneering social enterprises, what you then find is you have to create the whole market ecosystem in which they operate. If I take a simple example like a clean cook stove, the best way to stop indoor air pollution that kills large numbers of women and children each year, the stove is the easy bit. You've then got to have social marketing. You've got to have finance, consumer finance or carbon-related finance. You've got to create the enabling environment. You've got to have definitions of what clean means. Many ways in which just the pioneering social enterprise is the start of a whole raft of other changes that need to happen. But, as I say, from our perspective, a much more efficient, effective, scalable way of solving social challenges that exit subsidy dependence. Just picking on one issue, measuring reporting impact, there are a number of schemes now set up specifically to tackle this. There's the impact reporting and investment standards. There's the global impact investing reporting rating system, an Aspen network of development entrepreneurs, all trying to inject some rigour into measuring social performance. They are all early stage for obvious reasons. From where I sit, I would say that there's still some fragilities in reporting. There is a lot of reporting of what I would call gross social impact. A lot of the impact investment funds are still dependent on subsidy to operate. So are they sustainable as yet? Questionable. Some impact investors are double counting the returns from the same investment. So it's blurred. Again, I think this isn't a criticism. I think it's a function of the early stage of the market development. And critically, if this is going to develop as an asset class, are people making cash-to-cash financial returns of a level that will actually encourage them to reinvest? And at the moment, whilst people might talk about the good returns from individual deals, what we really need to see is that portfolio returns from a slew of investments across social enterprises. So, evolving. What do we need to help it evolve? I think we need more people to shift from traditional philanthropy into venture philanthropy and to start focusing on supporting nascent social enterprises who could be for-profits or not-for-profits. There is a critical need for grant support to this. I would say in certain countries that giving grants to for-profits is seen as a revenue source, therefore taxed. So there is a need for policy change here to recognise that grant support to for-profits is important. In the US, I would say there is still a fundamental problem of giving grant support to for-profits, even with a social purpose in mind. So not-for-profits still access most of that capital. There's still a need for more investors to accept both the lower yielding returns from these types of investors, but to have recognition of the associated social and development returns from this way of giving. We're seeing a lot of banks now, either through gilt or market generation, looking at social investment funds predominantly for this purpose. And I would say this, I'm at ODI, there is critically need for research and evaluation. Is impact investing really actually delivering the blended returns that we all hope and think? Just to end up on, I mean, I think it is a growing trend. It's interesting now. The Salvation Army, for instance, are involved in impact investing. Oxfam as well. Many donors, DFID here, I know, are supporting impact investing, so it's gaining traction. The private sector clearly is very attracted to this, both from finance institutions and in corporates. It is growing. Is it a threat to traditional aid? No, I don't think so, because it's complementary. I mean, we need government support and regulations and policy change if we address the market failures rather than just the social enterprises. And in parallel with this, as well as a growth in impact investing, I think we have to put this in the context of how the business world is changing. I would say, and Simon Maxwell here might have thoughts on it, I think there is a greater shift now in the business world to more inclusive business models. How do business partner with others to address new market opportunities? Business see a market opportunity in servicing some of these communities. They realise they can't do it on their own. They realise they need to partner with not-for-profits or indeed the public sector, either to offset risk or share learning or inject transparency into that. So my gut sense is that over the next 10 years, as Homi was saying, that red line on private philanthropic capital will grow. The way in which that capital is deployed will be much more related to seeking blended value returns, and you will see a greater involvement of the business sector across corporates and other businesses seeking to engage in development areas in ways that 20 years ago they didn't. And they're doing it because there's a business interest in it. This isn't about charity, it's because it's a business interest to serve a community and get returns, but do it in a way that partners with others. Thank you very much.